So that was wonderful. That was wonderful to hear. A beautiful piece of music by Monique Berry. Absolutely wonderful. And of course, there's nothing like a barefoot walk in the snow followed by a nice ice swim to bring us in touch with nature and to realize our own vulnerability and our own place in the universe. So we're going to have a lot of fun there at noon. We have a number of Indigenous artists. We're going to have an Indigenous warrior sort of immersion ritual at 1 p.m. So we'll take a break and we'll go, and I'll also bring my smart paddle. I made a paddle that has a swim in it. So we're going to do some growler boarding, which is where you stand on a piece of ice and paddle. And there's nothing like growler boarding to understand the idea of an ephemeral vessel, a vessel that disintegrates at any time and leaves you in the drink. So paddle boarding on ice is pretty much the same as ice swimming. So we'll have lots of fun today. Join us at Ontario Place. And thank you to all the wonderful people at Ontario Place who've kept the place open, who've kept the change rooms heated all winter and kept the snow shoveled off the walkways. It's very, very wonderful to have people to maintain that beautiful place, which we've enjoyed all winter. So now, Stephen Diamond is a really wonderful kind of modern day Leonardo da Vinci type thinker, sort of one of the great minds of our time. And what he's done with Waterfront Toronto is truly revolutionary, truly amazing. When we think of water, humans, and technology, we're right here in the city of Toronto with a beautiful lakefront. And yet, at present, we only really have one downtown beach, which is at Ontario Place. What we're going to see here is another place to swim right on the waterfront, a beautiful pool that's shaped like waves and wave-shaped themes. And of course, I love waves with my sequential wave and printing machine. And so I love that wave sculpture. It reminds me of Fourier series, and I teach the Fourier series concepts. I've still got my Pascal Fourier synthesizer, which was one of my favorite childhood toys. Generates waves, and you can control sines and cosines in the phase of each one. Look at it on an oscilloscope. And so the wave deck is just this beautiful sculpture. If you've never seen it, you really must see it. It's beautiful waves embodied right inside the walkway. And we're going to have another wave deck with an actual pool where you can swim right on the waterfront. So this is truly a beautiful thing with a kayak launch and SUP. You can launch your stand-up paddleboard there. Paddleboard's my favorite thing to launch because what I love about it so much is that you keep falling off if you push it hard, if you do SUP surfing. And I'd love that combination of swimming and paddling where you're kind of swim some, paddle some, swim some, paddle some. You're in and out of the water constantly. And that's what I really love about it. It's so easy to get on and off a paddleboard. So this is going to be wonderful to be able to go for a swim down there and then launch my paddleboard and swim in the lake, and paddle in the lake, and swim in the beautiful pool there that's shaped like Fourier series and mathematics. And this nexus of math, science, physics, and beauty and art is just a real genius, clever piece of wonderful amazement that Steve Diamond is going to discuss here. So Steve, take it away.
Okay, well, thanks very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. In thinking about this conference that you're holding, it made me think a little bit about water, which overall is the most important nutrient in our entire body that we need to exist. And the other thing I found interesting about water is there's a tendency with humans to need to be there to the water, that it makes us happier if you look at some of the research. And that comes to the role as being chair of Waterfront Toronto, how important our waterfront is to ensure that we have it being appropriately publicly accessible to millions of people that live in the GTA. So just a little bit of background as well about Waterfront Toronto. Waterfront Toronto was established in 2001. It's a tri-government agency of both the federal, provincial, and city governments. And the reason it was formed is the entire waterfront at the time was in a myriad of different ownerships. Some of that was brownfield sites. And what had happened in the 50s and 60s is because of roads and shipping, the city really turned its back on the waterfront. And the idea was to turn it all around and make the waterfront the front door to the city rather than the back door. And so the agency was to coordinate public and private investment and to revitalize our waterfront. So we've been doing that over the last 20 years to promoting both the social and ecological health of the area and hopefully making it a landmark for 21st century urbanism. So I just wanted to start off by putting up my first slide, and hopefully people can see that if it's on. Thank you. And basically, this is just basically showing you an entire outline of the area that is under our jurisdiction in the city of Toronto. And I wanted to point out in particular two little dots because Quayside is where what Steve was talking about in a very exciting new project for a future waterfront facility that's now underway. And then another dot on what we call the Portlands. And just basically by way of a summary of what we've done since 2001, since that date, there's been 138,000 square meters of aquatic habitat created to date in the waterfront. We've had 15 LEED or platinum buildings created. We've won 106 design awards. We've created 354,000 square meters of permeable surface on the waterfront. We've won 106 design awards, and we've created 47 new parks on the waterfront. And before I show you what we're doing with the most recent proposal, I've marked the Portlands area because that is a $1.5 billion flood protection project that is now underway. That's creating new land for innovative development along the waterfront. It's the largest public infrastructure project going ahead right today in North America. And I wish I could show you a lot more drawings of that as well, because there's going to be an island there completely circled by water for people to kayak, canoe, and play with additional waterfront facilities. But that'll be future planning as that project gets completed in the last couple of years. But just in terms of where we're headed, if I go back to the next slide, I'm not sure how I do that. There we go. So this is what we're really excited about, that we now have funding for. And this is water that was owned by the federal government, and Waterfront Toronto has recently purchased it right on the waterfront. It was known as the Parliament Slip. And this is where we're going to be creating this huge public facility to enhance the waterfront, which will be surrounded by parkland, a cultural facility, and where people can live, work, and play, and then hopefully inviting so many people from the entire region to be able to come down and enjoy the waterfront. And I think as Steve Mann indicated, we have Ontario Place on the west, but there's really nothing like this on the east side of the street. And just looking at it, there will be a swimming pool that you can see towards the north end. I'll go through some other diagrams. Plans are underway as well to make it usable in the winter. Actually not for swimming, although Steve may want to swim. We're hoping we'll be able to make it into a skating rink. And you can see towards the water, there'll be a floating restaurant, as well as an amphitheater for some live performances and retail that are along the slip there. So if I could just go back and show a few more slides of what we're doing here. So again, this is just showing a different perspective of the slip. Again, you can see at the north end where we're headed with that beautiful pool, and another image just showing people being across a boardwalk where there'll be some additional retail and public facilities, places for people to boat, people for canoe, the bridge across for a pedestrian way, and that will be linking. There's an entire waterfront link for miles and miles all across the entire waterfront. And again, the floating restaurant at the pier. And if I can go then to the next slide, just another image showing again how we envisage the place being used. You can see there the number of swimming pools, one for children, one more for adults. We actually, what's really interesting too is we recently conducted a poll within the entire GTA, and there was a tremendous response, how positive people responded to the idea of being able to come to the waterfront and finding a place to swim. And we were very pleased by this because we felt that that was the case. So it's clear that being near the water, that being able to enjoy the water, being able to swim, is something that has been around as part of human nature, and we're just really proud and excited about this facility that we're going to be able to be working on and should be completed in the next couple of years. That will be a product, and we're very thankful for both the federal, provincial, and city support for this, and for our agency, which we hope will continue with its ambition goals along the waterfront. So that is basically the most exciting new adventure or facility that we're doing. And as I said before, a final slide, again, just showing, what did we find as a result of the, post-pandemic environment was people wanted a place to be able to enjoy the waterfront. They wanted open spaces. And this is why we created this, to respond to what we felt was important coming out of the public. The white building to the south will be a cultural facility for people to enjoy. And again, you can see the harbor pools, which are located as number 1, the wave deck, the amphitheater, and the canoe launch in the areas of number 2. Number 3 at the bottom is the fixed water transportation pier, and 4 is the floating dock, which we hope will incorporate a restaurant. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. I think that the topic this morning is one that's important. And as I said at the beginning, being near the water and enjoying the water is, since the beginning of time, has been something that's been important to human nature. And so we're hoping to capitalize on that in terms of the work we do on the waterfront, and continue with our revitalization and opening this to be accessible for everyone. So that is basically my brief presentation this morning of what we're doing and what's most exciting in the near future. And Steve, thank you for the invitation to be able to be here.
Absolutely wonderful to have you here. This is just really wonderful news. I'm so happy to see this development because as a swimmer, as somebody who likes to swim, and there's so many of us who like to swim, and when people come to Toronto from other places, if you look at many other great cities, they have swimming 24 hours a day, open all the time. Like if you go to any great place like, even Hong Kong or something, you go down to the beach there's people, they swim all day, they have a barbecue at night, some people stay all night and swim. The change rooms and washrooms are open 24 hours a day. It's just a vibrant swimming community, and the waterfront is really celebrated. And I think there's so many of us who swim. There's morning swims, sunrise swims, noon, afternoon, sunset, midnight rituals, sort of midnight immersion rituals that happen on the full moon, and all kinds of things like that. So it's absolutely wonderful to see some friendly, accessible water in some way or another. And I'd love to learn more about those islands too. You're actually going to put islands there that you can swim out to or paddle out to.
Yes. Yeah, that part will be paddling more than swimming. But yes, and what I think is really interesting, Steve, is that what we found was generally, as I told you, in terms of what we felt in our hearts and what our surveys show, is that swimming is something that everybody relates to and everybody wants. And so that, combined with that desire to be near water and then to be able to use the water and swim, is something that we think is very unique and very innovative in terms of where we're going with the waterfront development, which is why we purchased the slip from the federal government and we're moving forward with this project. And it does have the support of all three levels of government, and it's something that will, hopefully be in place in the next couple of years. It's not something that's going to be, that far off in the future.
Where are the islands, and like how big are they, and how far out are they?
They're not huge. They're just little bits that'll be out a little bit from the shore. And
Yeah,
we'll have to work on getting some permission from them, but that's the vision.
yeah, because Ontario Place is looking also at islands, the new development, the new beach that's going in on the west side of the island. We'll have 2 additional islands that you can swim up to as well. And that's really nice, because at other places, many other beaches, many other cities have done that, like Hong Kong, Sheko Beach has these wonderful islands that you can swim up to. It's really beautiful to be sitting on a little island right out by the waterfront with the downtown core, and to be able to see the city from that perspective, to paddle out to a little island with a picnic lunch. We often swim or paddle to the Toronto island and have a picnic lunch.
Yeah, and although I can't show it as well as I would like, but you can see where the Portlands is today. That's actually being reconfigured as we speak. And there is going to be, that area actually becomes almost a complete island, where people will be able to, hopefully the water will be clean enough for people to swim, but you'll be able to go. It's going to be called Villiers Island, and you'll be able to completely go around that entire area in a canoe or a kayak as another new facility. It's a few years off, because it's just being completed now. As I said, it's a $1.5 billion project, but it also is going to be a huge enhancement and a facility for the public to use, and being able to make use of the waterfront, not just looking at it, but actively using it.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. And of course, in addition to canoe and kayak, you might want to also mention SUP, stand-up paddleboard. That's the new craze, I guess, if you will.
Well, yeah, I have a home in Thornbury on Georgian Bay, and stand-up paddleboards are definitely the rage these days, and it's a lot easier than I ever thought it would be to get up on one. They're great, fun facilities.
The technology has advanced so much. We have, whether you believe it or not, we actually have a Toronto-based SUP manufacturer, Thurso Surf, THURSO. And Shenglong Yu is the president and CEO and founder, and he's a good friend of mine. And they make SUPs right here in Toronto, so you can actually get a Toronto-made stand-up paddleboard and carbon fiber blade. Amazing technology, really easy. Like the way the technology has advanced is really amazing. It used to be that getting on a SUP was take a little bit of effort, right? But now they're so easy to get up and stay on, just because of the way they're designed. They really work well. Even in choppy water, you can stand up on the board without much effort.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you raise that, because when I look out my window, there is, I believe he may be a champion paddleboarder, but throughout the winter, he's of course in a wetsuit, but the waves are pretty high on the bay, and we see him going back and forth in January and February, and the waves don't seem to bother him, and out on that paddleboard. So it's a fascinating facility. In fact, one thing that I also saw this summer, maybe you know something about it, was there was a motorized paddleboard that I saw for the first time. Someone out on I couldn't figure out what it was, but he was sitting on some sort of motorized paddleboard, which I don't know how hard they are to ride or whatever, but that seems to be another craze that's coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that we're working on is it's almost like a little hoverboard cut structure. Like it's motorized, not so much to propel it, but to keep balance, so that you can paddle in really rough water and the thing will keep itself upright. You just stand on it and paddle, but the motors do all the balancing for you. So it makes it really easy. So anyone with zero skill can jump on this thing and paddle in choppy water.
Right.
And so that's kind of a neat example of feedback control theory and everything.
So I do have a question for you, Steve. What's the temperature in Lake Ontario water when you go swimming?
It's around 0. So usually we swim in an ice water mix, like around this. So when you go for a January dip, if you've ever gone for a polar bear dip, the water's not really that cold in January 1st. It takes a long time for the water to get cold. So if you look, the midsummer from an optical point of view from light is June 21st. That's the brightest day of the year. And then the hottest air comes a month later, so in July, and the hottest water comes a month later in August. So the air lags behind the light and the water lags behind the air. And likewise in the winter, December 21st is the darkest, gloomiest day, but then it isn't until late January that the air starts to get really, really cold. And it isn't until February that the water really gets cold. And so for growler boarding, which is standing on ice fragments and paddling, the growler boarding season is mostly February and March.
Wow, fascinating. That is amazing. I never thought about that, but that's true. The warmest water and that it follows, that it isn't December 21st is not it's usually not the coldest day of the year. We usually wait till January, so it's interesting.
Yeah, the water's really quite warm in December. Like if you've ever been for a polar bear dip, it's amazing how uncold the water is. Like the water's not really that cold on January 1st. It takes a long time for the lake to actually get cold. It isn't until late February or March that the water really gets cold.
And how long do you stay in when it's 32 or 0?
We typically stay like for many of us, it's a medical necessity. Like I have a shoulder injury and I actually need the ice water. And so I'll do maybe a 5 or 10 minute immersion in ice water, and it really relieves the shoulder pain and helps a lot. Provide mobility. A lot of people use it for mental health. I've never used cocaine myself, but a lot of former cocaine users have switched to ice water because it provides a similar rush without the risk of heart tachycardia. And so, or mental health, a lot of people with mental health issues are using it to get that rush. A lot of people, in some sense, it's almost better than medication in some ways, in many ways. And so your dose really depends on your own physiological circumstances. We have a heart monitor that we see on the head-up display. So when you're in the water, you see your heart, you bring your heart down into the 30s in ice water. If you calm yourself and bring yourself right down and slow right down, it's beautiful. You got to just know your limit and stay within it. And when you first go, you'll probably just want to dip. We encourage people to once their first swim, to just go in and out quick, just to get used to the idea. How do you change your clothes? How do you set your clothes up in a row so that you can put them on fast when you get out? Heated change rooms are a big plus. Like, many places have 24-hour open change rooms, heated change rooms, and that is absolutely beautiful year round. If there's change rooms that never close, is really, really nice. So that's one amenity that really makes it a lot easier to participate in winter swimming.
Well, I have to tell you, the more we can in this climate figure out ways to use the water would be amazing. So you're wearing a hat, but I'll say hats off to you. And anyway,
swimmers are all.
Yeah,
swimmers are always overdressed.
Yeah. Anyway, so thanks again for inviting me this morning, and hopefully I've given a little bit of an idea of some of the exciting waterfront projects that are underway at Waterfront Toronto.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on, and keep up the great work. And if you need any consulting or expertise or whatever, we have about 900 members of Swim OP who would be absolutely delighted. Many of them are experts, world experts. We've got people also from MIT and Stanford University and all the research labs that work on water. So if there's any questions you have, or you need input on, say, how to set up a winter swimming, because having swimming year round is just a real mental health boost. There's so many people now who've boosted their mental health. It's an intervention that really has, you just ask some of our members why they swim. It's just an amazing transformation.
Well, one of the things we should get some advice on, Steve, is, and I don't know what the cost is, or, when, could you keep that swimming pool, open till the end of December for people to swim in, and, does it turn into a skating rink in January and February, but to the end of December, if the water doesn't get that cold, what would the usage be? So I've made a note of that just to ask our consultants and to see whether they think there still might be usage of it to the end of the year.
That would be wonderful. If there's some way you could keep the water from freezing, and it doesn't take much to keep it from freezing, and you don't necessarily have to keep all of it from freezing. If you design it in such a way that it won't be damaged by freezing, in other words, if it's capable of withstanding the freezing, what we often do, many of us have ice saws, and we just cut a hole in the ice of modest size, or you have a heater there, a small heater, like 300 watts, not very much at all, will keep a good portion of it from freezing so you can enter. You probably find that you can swim all the way up to December, to the end of the calendar year, and then it's in February, it's going to be tough to keep it from freezing. But by all means, yeah, if there's something, we'd all love to chime in on this and
Great. Well, thank you. I've learned a lot already just from the last 45 minutes, Steve. And again, thank you for the invitation, and wish you the best of luck on the rest of the conference today.
Yes. So thank you so much for having you, and we're having fun. Pierre Lafontaine is our next speaker, and he's one of the super smart genius minds behind the Ontario Place idea, behind Therme, and he's also a really warm-hearted, sort of real human person who's done a lot to raise swimming in general, coaching to get swimming as a sport, to encourage swimming, to encourage people to learn to swim. So his theory is, more people learning to swim and more competitions encourage people to learn to swim, because people see excellence in swimming and they want to join the sport. And so what he's done is really multifold, multifaceted. He's brought in large numbers of people into the swimming sport, coaching, training on swim teams, and all those kinds of things. And also, we're really excited to see the idea that there might be another beach at Ontario Place on the west side of Ontario Place, because, as we were saying, it's crowded there in the summer, and more beaches are absolutely necessary, just because if we look at some of the historical drawings and plans and everything, there is call for 4 beaches to be built on Ontario Place. And at present, we've got our Pebble Beach, which is beautiful, sand-free, crystal clear water, and then having another beach on the west side, a sand beach, for people who like the sand. Some people like the crystal clear water that you get from not having sand, and other people like the sand. So having more beaches to choose from, and maybe even make Echo Beach swimmable too, because right now Echo Beach is not very swimmable, but there's a song written about it. And it sounds glorious in the song, but when you get there, it's a little bit of a letdown. But having more beaches at Ontario Place and having a spa there, having a place, a heated change room, maybe there could be saunas or something where you could warm up after a winter swim. There's all kinds of really great ideas, and also to make it educational, to build an educational, artistic, to bring art, science, technology, and passion to the whole art of swimming at Ontario Place. So, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Take it away.
Well, great. Well, thanks everybody. I can't see anybody, but that's okay. I had a chance to give a coaching conference in South America, but 6 months ago. It was 4 days, 8 hours a day online, to about 100 coaches. And two things happen. One, it's incredible how prepared you have to be in terms of PowerPoints and this and that, because they don't want to see your face for 4 days straight. And number one, number two, I always feel for any of those platforms that we're doing, I always feel the importance of, I call that meeting meters, the value of efficiency of a meeting in 1 hour for everybody's value. So whether you charge $150 an hour, $650 an hour, it's always important for me to make sure that the value delivered, if we're going to do it, something is relevant. And so I'm going to bring this platform on two fronts. One, a bit of my own personal experience in terms of making sure that we become a world free of drowning, starting in smaller platforms all the way up to, why not, number one. And number two, I want to talk to you about the Therme project that we have on the west side of Ontario Place, which is pretty brilliant. Actually, it's going to be memorable for the city. And one of the concept with the Therme project with the city is not just about a memorable experience, which it will be for families and for anybody, but it's also to help tourism. So if I go to Toronto for a conference, why would I want to stay an extra day? And so that's a huge aspect of why we got involved in Toronto. And the other one is not everybody could go to Cuba on special places, and that's going to be one of those places. As a family, you could go. It's a lot cheaper than going to Cuba, and you could go once a month, and it's easy. So my first really, I'm going to go through some of the notes, but in terms of learning to swim all the way from a baby to the Olympic podium, and I've had a chance to do all of it, lucky enough. And sometime as an Olympic coach, it's not what you do, but it's what you don't do. Like, you don't get in the way of performance, and you don't get in the way of magic, and you don't get in the way of talent, but you just manage brilliance. And I think in any field, if you're an Olympian and you're a medal potential Olympian, you are a Nobel Prize winner within your world, within your art. And I say that in many ways, not just about the artist, but I'm talking about the coaches and the environment that's created around them. And so, to me, this is what I want to talk to you about: is the things that I've personally done through my 40 or 45 years of career, but also as a CEO of Swimming Canada, as the Olympic coach in Australia and the US and in Canada. I started a foundation called the National Health and Fitness Foundation, which was about making Canada the fittest nation on earth. And started that 12 years ago with Nancy Green. You probably, for anybody, Nancy Green was the most recognized athlete of the 20th century in Canada, Olympic gold medalist and so on. And but it all started, for me as a young swimmer in the Pointe-Claire Swim Club. It started because my mom was principal of a school in Montreal for disabled, and they're looking for an instructor for disabled kids, Down syndrome, autistic kids, learning disabilities. And I said, well, I guess I could do that while I go through university and so on and so forth. And, who knows, 40 years later, I was Olympic coach in 3 different countries. But lately, all sorts of things fell. I don't know if it's fell into place through my experience, but I've had a chance to work with FINA, and I was in Senegal not long ago to speak at a conference for French-speaking African nations on governance, on how to build a coaching program, how to, start a learn to swim program, and really how to create an NSO, which is a national sporting organization in a country that's fair, equitable, that will select Olympic athletes properly, but also will have a learn to swim program. And I remember I was standing in the front and I was speaking about, you got to create the environment, you got to do this, the pool's got to be warm, and then one of the participants lifted his hand up from Afrique Centrale, from Central Africa, and said, so how would you do it? We don't have a pool in our country. We actually swim in a piranha-infested river that we mesh around an area, and the kids come in to the program. And it was a rude awakening to me, because our little world is there's pools and there's hot water most of the places, and it's great for little kids to learn to swim. It's actually good for seniors that are just want to be active. And so to me, that was really kind of like, oh, okay, let's go back to basic. Let's be humble about what we could do in terms of getting every child to play and every child to be water safe. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the things that in my different position, I felt were important, because the only way you get a kid on the podium at the Olympics starts with the fact that a mom and a dad, or a mom and a dad, decided to put their kids in swimming lessons somewhere along the way. And to me, that's probably the most important moment. How do we get kids in swimming lessons? I grew up with the concept that we swam in our local pools, and we didn't go 50 miles to the magic huge pool. We swam locally. And for me, it was one of those where my father wanted a sailboat and a ski boat, because we lived on the water. And I was 7 years old, and my older brother was 9. And my father said, well, you guys want me to get a boat? And I go, yeah. It's okay. You got to tread water for 30 minutes. So to me, that was my kind of example of initiation to enjoying aquatics of all kind. Drowning is the only preventable trauma. Often, you just have to learn to swim, and I do think that there's all sorts of reasons why you can't, but there's more reason why you can. And I'm not sure there's always a political will, but we need, in each of our countries, in each of our areas, in each of our towns, we need champions to try to I don't know what the word is, but to try to inspire reasons why you should put your kids in swimming lessons. So I spoke across the country. When I was a CEO, when I moved to Canada in 2005, I spoke as a CEO, and I would speak to provincial bodies, to Minister of Sports, to local clubs, and to little towns. And I'd say, why don't you put a motto with, you're going to be the first zero drowning community in the country? I do a lot of work right now in PEI, and that's, I went and met with the premier there, and I said, you know what, I think we should make this as a goal. So, it comes down to this. The Olympic program is really cool, but saving lives is as important, if not more, number one, because it's preventable, and all you got to do is get kids to learn to swim. There's more and more programs where, my point to the premier in PEI was, let's get every kid under the age of 8 to learn to swim, and let's get through the school system. And that's why I think the school system is quite important in terms of learning grassroots of sports. And meaning, what I mean by that is every kid in the school system has the right to play, because the job of a child is to play. Whereas when you start getting into clubs and so on and so forth, there's money, and not everybody has access to money to get there. Or mom and dad are working and the pool's too far and kids can't get in the bus. So to me, building a target within our world of zero drowning, and what are we doing to make sure that every kid learns to swim? The offshoot of all of this, we're going to get a lot of Olympians. They're triathletes that could sail because they're not worried about falling in, the kind of canoe, kayak, swimmers, water polo players. So to me, the whole approach of top to bottom or bottom to top is, how do you use the Olympians to promote the learn to swim, and how do we get communities? That's where they facilitate access to water. I've started this National Health and Fitness Foundation 12 years ago, and the target there was, and is now a rule or a law in Canada, making the first Saturday of June the National Health and Fitness Day. On that day, We've got over 500 communities that are opening their rinks and pools for free. And they're doing testing for swimming lessons. And so that whole concept was, for me, was Montreal's got the museum weekend. So why can't we just open all the pools and rinks and gyms for kids? In Manchester, England, they do that all the time, mainly because a lot of kids can't afford sports. And the pools, you still have to run the chlorine, you still have to have the lifeguards. Why not opening and get the kids off the streets and in the program? The other thing that I did when I was in the role of the CEO of the national team here is I actually called into all the aquatic Learn to Swim program across the country for one big meeting. It was the first time ever. The Red Cross, the Life Saving, the YMCA's, the local, the Olympic Way, for example, program, and all the private swimming pool association. And I talked about, what can we do as a group instead of fighting each other? What can we do? And we came up with 5 or 6 platforms that everybody went back home, and some worked at it and some didn't. But to me, it was, we need to start speaking as one voice in the government, provincially and federally, to get all the kids to learn to swim. The other thing that I did with the Governor General Johnston is we started a pilot project in Ottawa, which was prescription for swimming lessons. And the concept with prescription with swimming lessons was, I go to the doctor with my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, and one of the questions that the doctor would say was, oh, well, your son's really good, or your daughter's great, no ear infection. And by the way, before you go, can your child swim? And if they can't swim, there'd be a prescription pad that would be writing down, here's the 800 number for the Learn to Swim program, swimming lessons at University of Ottawa or at City of Ottawa. And they're waiting for your call, because that's the most important aspect that you could do outside of health. So that was a great little project. I moved on from that role a bit later, and Governor Johnston moved on, but it's still in the back of my mind to restart and really push that concept furthermore into other communities. But Andrew Pipe, who's a great doctor here in Ottawa, is also part of that concept. The other concept is Make It 3. And the concept Make It 3 is, if you take your son to swimming lessons, bring 2 other friends with their kids to swimming lessons. So to me, it was just finding ways to entice people to get, and it's easier when you do it with other people than when you do it by yourself, especially for adults Learn to Swim program. The highlight also of the Learn to Swim program, which I think is false economy for the city, is the pool water in the pools should be warm. We have to create a fun environment where the kids don't get cold. I don't know if one of my son was big like a stick, and more, he would get so cold in these pools, and he still to this day, as a 26-year-old, doesn't like to swim because he hates cold water. So, for us to work with our local community pools to have a bit warmer water for either for senior swimming or for our little kids. I know, some of you guys talk about ice swimming and so on, but I think before we even go to the extreme opportunities, I think we need to sell the sport. Whether it's cross-country skiing, you don't take little kids cross-country skiing at -20, you lose them, One of the things I did with the Olympic team, again, looking at ways to promote and to sell, and when our Olympic team members or Paralympic team members were picked, we would give them 3 or 4 T-shirts that they would sign, and they do a few things. And one of them is they would go to their Learn to Swim program from 20 years before and say, thank you to the Learn to Swim program for teaching me how to swim. And we'd give the shirt there. The Olympic program, we would create plaques. We'd give the plaque to the pool in Nelson, BC, where Brent Hayden learned to swim. And it was really to recognize the grassroots program and combine the top to the bottom. And I think that work could easily be done if you connect with your national sporting organization. And, for me at Swimming Canada, you could also go on the website and you see the whole pedigree of a swimmer who coached him when he was 8 years old and 12 years old and 13. Like, to me, it's not who wins, but how many people win with you. And so for us to go back to the Learn to Swim program, and for us to go back to recognizing people, I tell the swim team, how many times at Christmas time do you bring a bottle of wine to the mayor of, Timbuktu or whatever, to say, hey, thanks for allowing us to use your pool. Again, you got to create opportunities where people feel they're part of your success. And the Learn to Swim program, if it wasn't for that, we'd get nothing. And so we need to work with them hand in hand. A couple of things to other things. A couple of things with my Olympians that I thought was really important too is, when they did go to the grade school to give the T-shirt, was to do a presentation to the grade school about, don't tell your parents you want to go learn to swim and so on. And the same thing at the high school program. So to me, these were just simple things about promotion where the national program was as important as the Learn to Swim, and they actually need to go hand in hand together. We also created here Swim Day in Canada, which is often the third day of May, in partnership with the Red Cross and the life jackets. And I get MPs in a photo op on Parliament Hill with life jackets. We talked about, get your kids to learn to swim. I got the Minister of Health, get your kids to learn to swim and wear life jackets. So I think to me that's, if you look at a long picture of what's possible, I think to me these are some of the ideas that I helped create in Canada to try to get more people. Again, we've got over 600 people a year that drown in Canada. This is 600, you save a life, you save a world. And that's to me the key. If you could save and get another kid to learn to swim, you save the world, and you never know what great things one person could do. And that's why, my bug about Learn to Swim and about creating an environment that's exciting to go to swim, which is where the Therme project comes into play, is really important. If you ever want to look at some, I give you a few places that you should go online to go check some incredible facility. There's a pool that I helped build in Australia called Wagga Wagga. It's a town that's in the middle of Australia on the east coast, but not right on the coast. They've got an outdoor 15-meter pool. They've got an adult pool. They've got a little kiddie pool. It's a little community of 20,000 people. They produce more AFL, Australian rule football players than anywhere else in Australia. They're a little town in the middle of nowhere. But they've got an incredible environment. Every kid in the school system goes through there, and there's a place for everybody. And so you could look at, if you were talking about looking at pools and building pools in your community, that's one. Stockholm in Sweden has got an incredible facility with outdoor bath, outdoor pools for little kids for the summer, water slides, 50-meter pools indoor, a world-class World Cup size 25-meter pool, a teaching pool that the water's at 90 degrees for little babies, all within one big center, and it's the center of town. So, that's another place. If you're dreaming about how to set up an environment, these are great places. Just in Montreal on the East End, there's a little pool called Rivière des Prairies. And it's just a little community pool. And again, it's another, there's palm trees and there's, anyway. So I'm just getting you to see, that picture of what's possible there. And to me, again, if you could connect the Olympic program and Paralympic program with the Learn to Swim program and the school system, you got magic in your hand. The recreation communities within each of our towns are eager to create programs, and sometimes we could help them create programs. The only other things I'd like to think about was innovation. That you can't just keep repeating the same thing. Wayne Gretzky said, I don't go where the puck is. Where the puck is, I go where the puck is going to be. And so that's where we need to be. We need to create programs for disabled kids, for women-only program, for adults, Learn to Swim. I'm fighting with all these pools where they're putting these hoists for adults, where it's a chair, then you crank up the chair and you put a 75-year-old in. It's so embarrassing for these people. You need to put proper ramps and create a place where people will feel like it's welcoming. And that's it, like anything. You put your kids into school and they don't feel welcome, they're going to have a terrible experience. I think in open water, that I'm going to bring up open water before I go to the Therme project, but to me, open water is also another awesome opportunities for innovation for relays, for getting little kids to love. I don't know about you meeting some of your friends but they don't want to go and swim in lakes because they're scared. They can't see the bottom. They swim in their pools all the time, So we got to create these opportunities to the open water in small environment all the way to bigger environment. My work with PEI is directing the Canada Games concept. Well, the Canada Game concept also has open water. So last summer, I ran a camp for the PEI swimmers, and I took 12 kids on the beach in PEI. And 7 of those, they live in PEI, and 7 of those 12 kids had never been in the ocean. I mean, that's incredible. And it's often because the parents are scared of going in there too. So, to me, it's about finding ways to innovate, finding ways to bring the world here. So back to the Therme project, I want you to watch this little video I'm going to show you. But, what we want is we want to innovate. We want to bring the world to Toronto. We want to do things that's never been done mainly anywhere. We want to celebrate open water swimming and any other types of experience that might be really, really cool. Hey, Sam, I'm going to see if I don't know if you can see this. Where am I here? Can you see this? Can you see my video?
So right now we still see, we see you, I guess. Maybe you got to share your screen.
Okay, how do I do that?
So on the bottom, there's like the mute, unmute on the left. Then there's the camera off, on, off. And the third one is start sharing screen. And then you can either share a window or an application.
Okay. I'm going to go then here. So share this. Can you see what I'm writing here?
Yeah. I see Therme,
Okay.
Canada, Ontario Place.
Okay, so that's my website. So if you guys ever want to go there, I want you to watch this video here. So Therme Canada is the organization that we have here to build this incredible experience, not just a building, but an incredible experience on the west side of Ontario Place. We had to go through 2 RFPs under Premier Wynne and then now under Premier Ford. And in October, we got presented, we were awarded the building of this facility, which now we're finalizing all the permit. Hopefully, our wish would be 2026 to go in line with the Women's World Cup in Toronto, but I don't think we'll be able to do it. Let me present you the video, and if you ever want to just kind of see it yourself, you just go to Therme Canada. If anybody writes note, the other place you could go is Therme Bucharest, Bucharest. Our first concept was built in Bucharest, and the first year we had over 1 million people come to this facility. It's a engineering feast where it's all glass, movable ceiling, indoor-outdoor pools, botanical garden. Every plant in there will have over 1,000 palm trees, and every flower and plants will be microchipped to control humidity and so on and so forth. But the whole place, it's about creating an environment that's inviting to learn to swim. And to me, my first experience, once we built the one in Bucharest, was bringing my granddaughter that lives in Berlin. And I took her, I live out of swimming. I don't need to go to pools to go to pools. And so I took her to our pool to our aquatic center. It's not for learn to swim. It's not for racing. Instead of going to the beach in Cuba, you go into this experience. Well, 4 days later, I was still with my granddaughter in the water, 4, 5, 6 hours in the pool. She was 5 and 6 years old. And the water is 88 to 90 degrees all the way through the building. There's the deck are not cement. It's cedar everywhere. You're going to see. And to me, once I saw this, now we have one being finished in Manchester. We have one in Shanghai that's parked until COVID is over. And then this one is the next project the only project in North America, but we're looking at going to New York City, Chicago, and most probably LA.
Imagine a place of well-being that connects us, entertains us, and transforms us from something you dream about into something we live. Imagine a place reimagined unlike any other. Welcome to Therme Canada, Ontario Place. 50 years ago, Ontario made history by creating a place for the future, enabled with technology. 50 years later, history repeats itself with an incomparable destination set against a backdrop of parklands, botanical gardens, and aquatic pools within breathtaking design, technology, and architecture. In a union of land and water that began hundreds of years ago with our First Nations, Therme Canada, Ontario Place is a year-round urban retreat within a city, surrounded by the iconic waters of Lake Ontario. Today, our First Nations share this water with all of us as we embark upon a new vision for the lakefront. Imagined by Therme Group, developer of the world's first LEED Platinum, fully sustainable thermal resort, Therme Canada, Ontario Place will be an iconic landmark featuring unparalleled, affordable, and accessible opportunities to experience fun, entertainment, and wellness in an immersive destination created to enhance mind, body, and soul. A place where you can unplug and reconnect. Discover free and affordable activities, including local and global entertainment, cultural programming for all ages, and nutritious and delicious restaurants. Explore biodiverse public parklands, beaches, and lakefront trails, all set amongst luminescent pools of water. Therme Canada, Ontario Place will be a wondrous and unique well-being destination, a focal point for socializing, learning, and discovery. Welcome to Therme Canada, Ontario Place. Welcome to a place for everyone, from everywhere, every day.
Woo! There we go. Very, 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 very exciting for me. Let me just, I know I'm running out of time, but this is, it will be a place where we're going to have 8 to 10 different pools. Those pools come anywhere from an adult pool only with bars and hot tubs to world-class recovery centers that will be able to offer programs for the Maple Leafs or the Blue Jays all the way to the general public. There's going to be 5-star restaurants. There's going to be pools for kids, even pools for like 3 months old with only 6 inches of water. There's going to be, you notice in the picture, we're going to add beaches to the whole area. We're going to connect a gondola from BMO Stadium into the entrance, which is that trillium kind of a flower that's going to be the official entrance. We're going to build 3 floating islands. That hopefully in the winter, one of them will become an ice rink, artificial ice. So to me, that the whole Therme and the whole Ontario Place vision is now something that I think is going to be magical for the next 50 years with 3 parts. Our program, and we partner with the Mississauga of the Credit for all the art, because that's their territory. So anything that's art, and the ground outside is going to be a place where people could stop or meet there to go for those 100 kilometers bike ride that they want to do on the waterfront, all the way to Ticketmasters and Live Nation that's going to be in the middle, revamping the whole Budweiser Stadium and so on and so forth. And then on the east side of town, it's this group called Eco Recreation. That's the group that rebuilt the whole old Montreal experience. And they're going to be on the east side of town, zip lines and so on and so forth. So, we're excited for many fronts, but we want to make this Therme Canada platform a kickoff for our North American development, but also an iconic reason why you'd want to stay in Toronto for an extra 2 days with your family, for example. So, I'm open to questions on many, many fronts. I felt that when I took that over, it was because my daughter's partner was originally involved with the Therme in Bucharest, and there was another similar program in Munich, and they asked me if I'd want to get involved to create something magic in here. And my point was, we can't create anything magic if it's not in a magical place. And we thought, we could go to Old Montreal or this and that, but really Toronto is the center. It's one of the great town of North America, and that Ontario place was ready for receiving us. So
yeah, you've picked a great spot because it's sort of the epicenter. Ontario is right at the core of world capital of water and everything.
That's right.
Beautiful.
The other thing is that I've already been approached by several Americans that want to swim across Lake Ontario, and if they'd be consider for us to create a platform where they could land at Ontario Place. And these are all the things, whether we create races in the canal next door or an open water finish that could be iconic. I mean, these are the things. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. I think a lot of people are already way smarter than us, and that could help us create something that there's nowhere else in the world. And I keep saying to people in this country, and why not? Why not make our country the fittest nation in the world? Why not be zero drowning? And why not create Ontario Place as being as magical as you could ever want to be for an 80-year-old and a 3-year-old?
I love the vision that you have and the emphasis on swimming and open water and beaches and using the existing canal. Like the existing Ontario Place West Channel was the Pan Am Games venue, and it's already marked off in 100-meter increments in Roman numerals, so you can already swim there and do a timed course. So it's really nice in that regard. And
think about this. Can we even find some of those platforms that we create the biggest rink in the world, for example? A bit like the canal here in Ottawa. Is the canal solid enough in the winter by Ontario Place that we could build an incredible rink there?
Yeah, in the West Channel, Ontario Place West Channel, behind the breakwall, it certainly freezes more readily, and that would be a great idea. And then to have additional swim venues there and elsewhere. I really like the idea of more beaches and the idea that you're adding a new beach. The only thing I noticed from the renderings, so there are some places where there's an abrupt wall that drops off, and the thought that I had. Right now at Ontario Place, there's a lot of fairly treacherous areas where if you fell in the water, you'd have a long way to swim before you could get out. And with the water temperature around this time of year, you want to have it easy for people to exit wherever they might fall through the ice, whether skating or fall in the water. And I was thinking one idea that would make sense would be to make the entire perimeter beach-like and get rid of, wherever possible, this abrupt step edge. Because at present, it's very, very crowded in the summer, and adding as much beach capacity as possible, because I think this place is a really wonderful attraction that will bring a lot of people. It'll be, as you say, a place for people, a reason to come to Toronto. It'll be a reason to have conferences in Toronto. Because if you look at other cities, they have something really glorious that brings people there. A beachside, a really glorious beach is something Toronto doesn't have.
That's a great point, and I think the rendering is a rendering.
Yeah.
And when we get to the deeper project in terms of page per page or what we're going to do, I think these are all aspects that are not to say important, but that we have to look at if it's at all feasible.
Or at least getting rid of the safety risk of having those step edges, like that high embankment that people would fall in and wouldn't be able to climb up, because it looked like the rendering is beautiful in almost every respect, but I just noticed that one thing is there's a drowning risk there, and it would be kind of neat to get rid of those, because there's quite a few of them right now. When I'm standing on that ice fragment, when you're paddling on ice, your ice can disappear at any time and you have to swim out. So I'm always looking where's the nearest ladder to climb out. And they're kind of few and far between. There's a lot of really long embankments at Ontario Place where if you fell in, you'd have a long way to swim before you could get out.
So one of the questions I saw was about cost. We're going to try to make the cost reasonable, because we want to be able to have a family that goes there and feel comfortable. The concept that we have in Bucharest and in Manchester is you come in with a bracelet, there's an entry fee, but you don't pay till you go out. And inside the restaurant, inside the place, everything's free once you get in. The locker are open with the bracelet. We got high technology in the lockers. You can plug your phone in there. You can do this and that. The restaurants, we're looking at building iconic or partnering with iconic restaurants from, hopefully Schwartz's could come in and build a little booth, and other iconic restaurants in Toronto that people go, and so instead of having to pay everything, you could just use your bracelet, pay there, and when you get out, you pay for everything. So, I thought is if you have a family of 4, and if they go in and they eat, I don't know. We keep talking about numbers from $25 to $40 of entrance. There's no time. You be there all day if you want. There's pools for adults, pools for kids, pools for families. Like I said, 50 to 70 different water slides. So I guess, if you're going to come for a conference and you're going to go there with your 2 kids, and, it's going to be a lot cheaper than to go to the Maple Leaf game for sure. And you could stay there for hours and hours and hours. So hopefully it's a worthwhile experience that we have created that people will go, yeah, like it's incredible,
Beautiful.
To go
One
back
question that keeps coming up from a lot of the swimmers is, one thing that would be really nice is an affordable, low-cost place just to warm up and change clothes right next to the beach, because you're going to have a lot of people who, yes, it's okay to pay $40 to go for a day of really wonderful entertainment, but there's a lot of people for medical reasons, they swim every day and they only come down for half an hour. So they need cheap parking to just come in, park for half an hour, swim, and have a warm place to change, and maybe a sauna or something, like a very low cost, affordable, where they can just do a 1-hour visit every single day for medical reasons, let's say. And they're not, they don't want to shell out $40 because they're not going to stay the whole day and get their money's worth,
Yeah, and I think that's I'm putting myself these notes here because I think these are all, like, we're looking at the whole west side is under our umbrella for us to look at and to be user populated with the Mississauga to credit First Nation in terms of art, in terms of plants, in terms of landscaping, in terms of making it inviting for everybody. So, thank you.
Excellent. Super awesome. Wonderful to have you speak, and let's stay in touch, and we'll keep